Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. The New Zealand heavyweight Joseph Parker could be fighting back in New Zealand for his next fight, according to his promoter Eddie Hearn. Hearn made some comments post-fight to Boxing Social, the YouTube channel. I'll get to that quote in a minute. It is a brief one, but in terms of coming back to New Zealand, you might be asking the question, well, hang on, didn't he sign with Matchroom to fight either in the US or UK, be in big fights, so why would he come back to New Zealand? It's a question, and I've got a few ideas on what's going on here, but we'll talk about it. So buckle in. Let's go. Let's start with Eddie Hearn. His comment, very brief to Boxing Social, said it was a good performance by Joseph Parker, beating Shaundale Winters, etc. And then he said, Joseph Parker was great. Like to see him in a big fight, maybe even talking about doing a fight back in New Zealand with him, which we are looking at. So that was the full quote about Joseph Parker and the what next. And it's quite interesting because I didn't see that coming. I just figured they'd be campaigning him either in the US or the UK, and it's his third fight next on his Matchroom deal. They're probably looking to toss him in with someone who's halfway decent because he needs a big fight next. And maybe they're looking at Joseph Parker in the context of the couple of fights that he's already had, remembering sort of if we step back, so the 3-fight deal which was announced in June 2019, at the time New Zealand media reporting it as a big 7-figure deal. Estimates of the value of it have ranged from 3 to 6 million New Zealand dollars, so half that and you've got the US amount, so it's somewhere reportedly about $1.5 million to $3 million. And when you consider he's fought Alex Leapai and Shaundale Winters, 2 of his 3 fights on his current deal. Pretty good going for, the level of money that he's going to be getting paid. And obviously Parker wants to work his way back to a heavyweight title, and fans haven't exactly been happy with his activity, the lack of fights and the lack of fights against quality opposition. And we're hearing that Joseph Parker is a bit frustrated with the inactivity. He wants a big fight. After his win over Shaundale Winters, where he stopped him in 5 rounds, he said, I want to fight someone in the top 5, top 15, and I want to be in a big fight. He wants 2 more fights in 2020, and I could see the next one being in New Zealand because he indicated he wanted a big fight at the end of the year. He wanted to have a bang at the end of the year, as he put it. So what I could see Matchroom doing, because they know that a lot of the top heavyweights right now, some of the guys that Joseph Parker wants to be in with, he called out Derek Chisora, he called out Dillian White, they are currently about to be tied up in their next fights, which are set to be announced. Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora, Dillian White versus Alexander Povetkin. So I could totally see Matchroom bringing a card to New Zealand, and what that would do for them is twofold. One, it would give Joseph Parker a headline show. He's the top of the bill, etc. Because at the moment, he's sort of fallen into mid-card irrelevance. He was the 4th fight from the top of the bill in Frisco, Texas. I don't think he signed on to Matchroom thinking he was going to be that sort of fighter, just sort of padding out a card. That's effectively what it was. It is what it is in the end, but giving Parker a card to headline in his own country tops the bill. It's a signal to him, yeah, we believe in you, we believe in your talent, we want you to be a big part of our plans going forward. It might be the sweetener to help him re-sign on a new Matchroom deal, because I'm sure there'll be interest from Top Rank, which Joseph Parker has had an association with before, and possibly also from the PBC. All these big promotional outfits will want to get Joseph Parker into the stable for the right sort of deal. But Eddie Hearn will want to keep him close and in the stable, and a sweetener in a pay-per-view event, which would be in New Zealand, headlining a card, is probably, a good signal to him that, we believe in you. But also the other element is Matchroom wants to make back some money off Joseph Parker, because as I mentioned before, a couple of tune-ups so far, they've put a lot of money into him in terms of his purses. A pay-per-view card in New Zealand, because Joseph Parker, doesn't matter what happens, he's always going to be on pay-per-view in New Zealand. This card in Frisco, Texas from this past weekend, it was $40 New Zealand to buy that card. So what I think they'll do is they'll end up putting Joseph Parker in against a top 30 sort of opponent. And I want to keep my expectations in check. So although he's called out some guys in the top 15, for example, and mentioned some names, specific names, I don't think those guys are going to be the guys that Joseph Parker is fighting next. It's more realistic that we're going to see a top 30 style of guy. And I could see something like an Otto Wallin, for example. There's going to be some guys that they can pull out who've had reasonably good performances in the past year or so, that have got some value, not too many losses on the record, and they can sell that on pay-per-view in New Zealand, possibly even in Australia, because that's happened before. And then obviously they have some content for Sky back in the UK and also for DAZN in the United States. And there's some other possible names as well to consider, maybe a Zhili Zhang, Sergey Kuzmin, or possibly even Michael Hunter. And Michael Hunter, out of all the options I've named, including Otto Wallin, is probably the most dangerous guy to Joseph Parker. Although I'm not convinced that Michael Hunter ends up being the guy. I haven't heard Joseph Parker call him out, although I don't believe he turned him down. But I think they've got different plans for Joseph Parker at this point and different plans for Michael Hunter. So if they could get a Zhili Zhang, who's unbeaten, Sergey Kuzmin, he's got a couple of losses, Otto Wallin, just the one loss that was against Tyson Fury, that's the level of opponent I believe that they will be targeting for Joseph Parker. And if he gets through that sort of top 30 level opposition and looks good, then they'll build him up to a big fight at the end of the year. And remembering he's the number 2 in the WBO, so there could be a WBO final eliminator called at some point. At the moment, that could potentially be against Daniel Dubois, although there could be a possibility to have some sort of fight against the winner of Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora. There's options there, but there's a few pieces that need to fall into place before Parker gets the big fight that he's looking for. So I could see them running it back in New Zealand, trying to fleece the New Zealand market with an overpriced pay-per-view as is standard, and then sort of giving Parker a good signal, yeah, we want to keep you in the tent, re-sign with us, we'll get you that big fight next. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.